This story is titled, They Promised Something Special for My Graduation, Then Ditched Me for a Beach Vacation. Hi, everyone. Before we dive a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It is free, supports the channel, and make sure you never miss out on amazing video. Alright, let us get started. For weeks leading up to my graduation, my mom and my brother kept dropping hints. We've got something special planned. But when the big day finally arrived, they were nowhere to be found. Instead, they posted vacation photos from a beach resort with the caption, "She'll understand." I didn't reply, didn't say a word. But later, after I posted a picture of myself with my dad's side of the family, I opened my phone to find over 200 messages. Hey Reddit, I'm Hana, 22 years old. Until not long ago, I truly believed that if I just kept quiet, worked hard, and stayed out of trouble, then maybe, just maybe, my family would finally start treating me like they treated my brother. This is the story of my college graduation. But truthfully, the story starts much earlier than that. I grew up in one of those small towns that looks like a postcard. Neat yards, quiet streets, friendly faces at the store. But behind our front door, it always felt like we were one sharp word away from everything falling apart. My mom, Celine, had this way of being perfectly charming in public. At school events or church gatherings, she came off as warm, kind, maybe even admirable. But at home, it was a different story. She didn't yell or throw things. That wasn't her style. She used guilt like a scalpel, cutting deep without ever raising her voice. She had this way of making you feel like you were the problem, even when you were just a kid trying to figure out why nothing you did ever seemed good enough. Then there was Levi, my brother, 2 years older. To her, Levi could walk on water. He got average grades, skipped class, and rolled in at all hours of the night without ever being questioned. Celine always had an excuse ready to go. He's under a lot of pressure, or he just needs space to find himself. But if I came home 10 minutes late from studying at the library, suddenly I was irresponsible. Suddenly I was the one who didn't care about her peace of mind. Most of my teenage years were spent chasing praise I never got. Straight A's, perfect attendance, volunteering, working part-time. I stacked up gold stars like I was building a ladder to her approval. And still, it never seemed to matter. Whenever I told her about something good, an award, a school project, anything, she'd give a vague nod or a soft, flat, "That's nice." But when Levi mentioned maybe starting a YouTube channel or a business idea he'd forget about by next week, her whole face would light up. Still, I kept telling myself that college would be different. I earned a full academic scholarship to a solid state university, packed my things, and left with a mix of guilt and relief. During that first semester, I barely heard from Celine. She'd text once in a while, mostly about bills, or asking if I needed money. I didn't. I had 2 jobs and a budget so tight it squeaked, but I made it work. Over the next 4 years, I rarely came home. And whenever I did, I always regretted it. One time, I mentioned something my dad had said during a rare phone call, nothing major, just a comment, and she immediately shut down, changed the subject, and walked out of the room. Later, Levi told me, "You don't know what Mom went through after he left. She stayed for us." But it never really felt like she stayed for me. Most of the time, I felt like wallpaper in that house, just part of the background. Still, as graduation approached, I found myself wanting them there. Honestly, I'm not even sure why. Maybe I just hoped, after everything, they'd finally see me. Not as the quiet, obedient one, but as someone they could actually be proud of. I wasn't expecting balloons or a big dinner or anything flashy. I just wanted them in the audience. Then about 3 weeks before the ceremony, Celine started dropping hints. It began small. During one of our rare calls, she said, "Don't make any big plans after graduation. Levi and I have something special planned for you." I remember holding the phone to my ear, just staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment. "Something special?" I asked, trying not to sound too hopeful. "You'll see," she said, her voice oddly cheerful. "We wanted to do something a little different. You've worked so hard, we're proud." That word, proud, hit me like hearing an old song I'd forgotten. I didn't know what to do with it. I clung to it anyway. Even though my gut warned me not to, I let myself believe. A few days later, Levi texted me out of the blue. "Don't book anything after graduation. Trust us. It's gonna be big." I asked what he meant. He sent a winking emoji. Not exactly comforting, but again, I let myself hope. In the final week before the ceremony, Celine called me 3 times. That was more than she'd called all semester. Each time, she ended the conversation with some version of, "Just wait." You're going to love it. We can't wait to see your face. And that was all it took for me to start imagining. Maybe they reserved a table at a nice restaurant. Maybe they were bringing extended family I hadn't seen in years. Maybe, just maybe, they were finally going to say what I'd been waiting to hear since I was a kid, that I mattered. The night before graduation, my dad flew in. Now that's a whole other story. He left when I was 9, and we didn't talk for years. But during my sophomore year, he reached out. I was cautious at first, but over time, we started rebuilding something. He's far from perfect, and there are still things we don't discuss. But he's tried, and that's more than I can say for anyone else. He and his wife, Kendra, who's actually really sweet, booked a hotel near campus. We met for dinner the night before graduation, just a quiet place with dim lighting and good food. He seemed a little nervous, like he wasn't sure if he'd be welcome. I reassured him. Mom and Levi said they have something planned, I told him, stirring my tea. So I guess they'll be at the ceremony. He raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything right away. Finally, he asked, did they tell you what it is? Nope, just said it was special and that I should trust them. He looked down at his plate and nodded slowly. Well, I'll be there. Third row, left side. Facebook. Notifications. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Confused, I opened Instagram first. And there it was, the punch to the gut I didn't see coming. Right at the top of my feed, a picture of Celine and Levi. Laid back in beach chairs, sunglasses on, a bright blue ocean stretching out behind them. Her feet were half buried in soft white sand. Levi had that smug little smirk he always wore, like he'd just cracked a joke only he found funny. They looked completely at ease. No stress. No guilt. Just two people living it up without a trace of shame. The caption? Sometimes the best gift is peace. She'll understand. I didn't move. Didn't speak. My fingers were clenched around my phone, frozen. The background noise in the restaurant faded into nothing. I wasn't even angry yet. Not really. Just hollow. My dad must have seen something change in my face. He paused mid-bite and asked, quietly, you okay? I pressed the lock button on my phone and forced a smile. Yeah, just tired. He gave me a look, half doubtful, half sympathetic, but didn't push. And for that, I was thankful. I didn't post anything right away. I didn't even know what to say. But later that night, after I'd taken off the cap and gown and wiped off my makeup, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened a photo Kendra had taken. It was me and Dad. I was holding my diploma. He had one arm draped over my shoulder. We were smiling in front of the restaurant window. There was something real about it. No performance. Just a quiet, honest moment. So I posted it. No tags. No dramatic caption. Just a few words. Grateful for the people who show up. Then I set my phone aside and went to brush my teeth. When I came back, my screen was lit up. Dozens of comments. By the end of the hour, over 60 messages. By morning, I had more than 200. Some were from distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. Others were from old friends, classmates, even a guy Levi used to hang out with in high school. Each one had something to say, but one comment stopped me cold. It was from Celine's account. We were doing what we thought was best. You don't have to make this public. I read it. Then I read it again. My heart wasn't aching this time. It was pounding, not with sadness, but with something sharper, heavier. The dam inside me finally cracked. And then came another notification. Not a call. A message. From Levi. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the message like it might burn me. I was trying to prepare myself for whatever watered-down version of the truth he thought I could handle. Maybe he'd claim it was a spontaneous trip. Maybe he'd say it was all Mom's idea. Or worse, maybe he'd act like none of it mattered. Like I was just being over-dramatic again. Eventually, I tapped it open. Hey, look, don't blow this out of proportion. Mom and I needed a break. We figured you'd be with Dad anyway, and honestly, you didn't sound that excited when we said we had plans. It's not like we promised anything. You always take things so personally. I read it through once. Then again. And I just sat there. Not crying. Not even angry. Just silent. It was like something flipped inside me. The way he wrote it. So casual. So dismissive. It felt like my graduation was just another optional family event he could skip if the weather looked better somewhere else. Then my mind went back. To the late nights in the library. To the double shifts. To learning how to stretch $20 over 7 days when the meal plan ran out. To every sacrifice. Every hour. Every ounce of effort I gave. Not just for the degree, but for them. For their approval. for them to finally see me. And then I remembered that caption again. She'll understand. No, no, I wouldn't. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for apologies. Not for change. Not for some magical moment when they'd finally treat me like I mattered. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next, but I knew I couldn't let them sweep this under the rug. Not again. Not like everything else. I wasn't trying to stir up drama. I didn't want a screaming match or some public scene. What I wanted was clarity, and if they wouldn't give it to me, then I'd find it myself. So I started going through all the messages I'd received. Most were kind, people telling me I deserved better, that they were proud of me. But a few stood out for a different reason. One in particular caught my eye. It was from my Aunt Liana, Celine's younger sister. We hadn't talked much since I left for college. My Aunt Liana lived a few towns away. She had always come across as polite and a bit distant, but never unkind. Her message was short. If you ever want to know what really happened with your dad, call me. That line hit harder than I expected. I hadn't really thought about the divorce in years. Not in any real detail. Everything I knew had come from Celine. She always said Dad walked out when I was 9 because he didn't want to handle responsibility anymore. No explanations. No context. Just that story on repeat. Levi told it so many times it practically became scripture in our house. It took me a full day to work up the nerve to call Liana. She picked up on the third ring. I was hoping you would, she said. We talked for 2 hours. I won't share everything she said. Some of it, I'm still processing. But what she told me completely flipped the narrative I'd been fed my whole life. It changed how I saw my dad, how I saw my mom, and how I understood so many things that never made sense before. Like why money mysteriously went missing during my senior year of high school. Why Celine never wanted me to spend weekends with Dad, even though the court had said it was allowed. Why he always seemed nervous about reaching out to me. When I hung up, I just sat there on the floor, phone in my lap, staring at the wall. And then I started writing. It wasn't some dramatic call-out, not some bitter rant or revenge piece. It started as a letter, just for me. Then it became a document. Then a timeline. Then screenshots. Photos. Text. All the things I'd ignored or buried for years because I didn't want to cause a stir. I didn't know what I'd end up doing with it. But just organizing the truth, laying it out plainly, made me feel something I hadn't felt around my family in a long time. Control. A week passed. I still didn't respond to Celine's comment. I didn't open Levi's follow-up message either. Seriously? You're going to make a scene over one day? I let the silence stretch. And I think that is what finally got to them. Because that's when the calls started. First it was Celine. Then Levi. Then a number I didn't recognize. It turned out to be my Uncle Grant. They all said the same things, just in different voices. You need to let this go. You're being unfair. This isn't how family handles things. And then came the one that really stuck, from Celine herself. I hope you're not trying to turn people against us. That wouldn't be very mature, would it? I stared at that text, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilt or confusion. I felt power. Not revenge. Not quite, but I could see the edge of it now. The possibility of it. While they had built their little world out of half-truths and deflections, I had been watching. Taking notes. Growing. And now I had something they weren't prepared for. Proof. Perspective. And people, more than they realized, who were listening. The turning point came when Celine posted again. I wasn't expecting it. She'd gone silent for a few weeks, and part of me had hoped maybe, just maybe, she was realizing the weight of what she'd done. But then, late one night, there it was. A photo of her and Levi, this time lounging on a private yacht, arms tossed casually over the back rail like nothing had ever happened. The caption? Some things are just too important to sacrifice for drama. We're doing what's best for us. I stared at the screen for a long time. And that was it. I was done. This wasn't just about graduation. It wasn't about one missed day. It was about a lifetime of being the afterthought, of being dismissed in favor of Levi's latest whim. Of being ignored until it was convenient to pretend otherwise. That night, I made a decision. I was going to tell the truth. All of it. The next morning, I pulled out my laptop and got to work. I gathered everything, photos, messages, old receipts showing years of money transfers between Mom and Levi. I found emails where Celine made it clear how disappointed she was that I didn't want to follow in her footsteps. I included notes from the call with Aunt Liana, everything she revealed about the divorce. That my dad didn't abandon us. That Celine had made sure to keep him out of my life so she could hold on to control. I added a few more things, too. Messages from old friends who remembered how Levi would talk down to me when nobody else was around. Stories of canceled plans, of secondhand treatment, of being an afterthought for years. I didn't need to exaggerate. The truth was damning enough. Then I wrote my post. It wasn't a public shaming. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I shared it with close friends, extended family, and the people who had reached out to me after graduation. It was just my story. How I spent years trying to earn love that was freely given to someone else. How one of the biggest days of my life was brushed aside with a vague text. And how, after everything, I wasn't bitter. I was just done. I was taking my power back. And I was building a life on my terms. Within hours, the responses came pouring in. People were stunned. They were angry. And to my surprise, they were kind. Friends from college who I barely knew that well messaged me with encouragement. Old teachers from high school reached out to say they'd always admired my drive but never knew the whole story. And Liana, she called me right away. You did the right thing, she told me. I don't know if I'd have had the courage to do it myself. But now you've got your voice back. Then came the call from Levi. I hadn't answered his texts, but something told me I needed to hear this one. I picked up. What is wrong with you? He snapped, voice tight and sharp. You didn't have to air everything. You've turned this into something it's not. We're just doing what's best for us. Why can't you accept that? I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just said, calmly, you still don't get it, do you? This was never about you. It was about me. And not once, have you ever cared about what this did to me. There was a long silence. Then a sigh. Fine, he muttered. I'm not going to apologize. Not for this. And that was when I knew I was finished. No more pretending. No more hoping. No more waiting around for people who only saw me when it benefited them. A few days later, Celine tried to call. Twice. I let it ring. The third time, she sent a long text. Longer than anything she'd written to me in years. It was an apology, sort of. She admitted she might have been wrong. Said maybe she shouldn't have left me out, shouldn't have focused so much on Levi. But she still danced around it. She never fully owned what she'd done. She just said she wanted to move forward. That she hoped I would too. I didn't reply. I let the message sit there. A few days passed, and then my dad called. He hadn't been wrapped up in any of it, but I could tell he'd heard the fallout. He asked if I was okay. And he said, I'm proud of you. At first, I didn't say much. Then I told him everything. I didn't hold back. I told him how I felt growing up. What I'd learned. And how for years, I thought if I was good enough, maybe they'd finally love me the way they loved Levi. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said one thing. Whatever happens next, you'll always have me in your corner. And for once, I believed him. Things didn't wrap up neatly. There wasn't some grand reunion. Celine never showed up with a real apology. Levi stayed Levi. But something changed in me. I wasn't waiting anymore. I had done the work, emotionally, mentally, academically, to get here. And now, I had peace. I stopped checking my phone for their approval. I started focusing on my next steps. I had a job lined up. A new city waiting for me. A fresh start, with no baggage and no expectations. In the end, I realized the best revenge wasn't a dramatic post or a heated argument. It was living well. It was building a life that had nothing to do with them. A life where I didn't need their permission or their praise. And honestly, that was all I'd ever wanted.